What's going on, everybody? Doc and Sloth, we're back again. We're talking more Colony DLC for Halo Wars 2 today, and we're doing just as we've done essentially since this game came out, Sloth, which was specific unit breakdowns. So for this one today, we're just going to jump over to the deck. We're going to take a look at the specific cards for the Colony DLC that we got. For those of you that are not familiar with how we do this breakdown, we have a couple other videos where we show you, we essentially go into a private match in Blitz, and we essentially run at least the units up against each other. We put them in one-on-one fights. We do some spacing and some other things just to make sure, and then we essentially work them in the one-on-one fight. We take their time to kill. So how long it takes that specific unit versus what we're pairing it against to kill it. And we have a spreadsheet which we'll link down below. We've updated everything, so those of you that are have been around with the channel for a while know you can go. The spreadsheet is up to date, so go take a look at it. And again, we've really found this to be helpful, really in Blitz, obviously, but more so with specific card selection in specific deck builds, because it tells us a lot about how much better or worse cards or units may be than we think they are. So Sloth's going to kick us off with the Goliath, and we'll just kind of run through all 8 cards that Colony DLC has for us.
Yeah, we do hope that this series is really helpful for you because it's really helpful for us to see the ins and outs and what makes each unit good or bad in each deck. To kind of kick things off, we have the Goliath, a terrifying looking unit. We wanted to make sure that it kind of followed through on that kind of terrifying premise. Not obviously, as you can see, it's not going to be the anti-vehicle specialist that your hunters are going to be, but I actually like this unit. It does not have a great time to kill. We tested it out against the Wolverine. We kind of tested it out against the Cyclops. It's okay. But honestly, it's a 40 energy unit. 30 seconds on the time to kill in Wolverine's not fantastic. I think the big thing hindering this is its slow attack speed. It has this big animation it has to go through to hit all these units and stuff. But the big thing with these guys is they can soak up a lot of damage, and if you get them in any sort of numbers at all, they're terrifying.
Right, absolutely. And the one nice thing, just really quick, piggyback off of that, they do have the ram ability, so you get a little bit more bang for your buck, I guess, if you will, compared to maybe the hunters, probably a next closest comparable unit, which isn't bad. So hopping over.
Yeah, and I think
No, go ahead. Sorry.
sorry, I think they have a pretty good movement speed there too,
Mhm.
which is going to really help out. Hunters aren't necessarily like super slow, but the Goliath has that really big ape-like four-legged run that actually moves around the map pretty solid.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And pretty fast at taking down energy cores too. So that's definitely not bad. So looking at vehicle symbiotes, we actually tested this out. Not as big of a fan of this as we had been before we knew this information. So 60 energy, not bad. It's a decent AoE to target, but we found that this really does not last very long at all. And I mean very long at all. We tested it. We ran it where we put it on a unit, brought the unit in, and I think even by the time we moved the unit up to attack, it was already gone. So it's very, very, I would say, seconds. You get seconds out of this. And then we looked at multiplayer. Now, Sloth, correct me if I'm wrong. Multiplayer, it did stick around.
Yes, that is correct.
Yes.
It seemed to be a permanent buff, but I don't know if it's a bug because you are correct. It literally lasts about 3 seconds. You see the little worms crawling around under it, and the buff just goes away. It's super fast.
Right now, I would say that probably Sloth, if you mentioned this when we were testing it, maybe defensively this card would be pretty good because the additional damage it's decent. It's pretty good. Um, I think what did it cut down, like 4 seconds off of time to kill uh, for us. I mean, it was good. It was definitely good, but again,
Yeah.
it did not last long enough to make it. To me, I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to use it until either it gets fixed if it is bugged, or until they increase the time that it's around. Now, granted, for Blitz, it's a little bit more fast paced, so a permanent buff would be too overpowered. But in our opinion, again, it just did not last long enough. Then we'll hop over to Living Barrier.
Yeah, Living Barrier is one that I'm really excited for, especially in Blitz. We will probably do a deck build guide for you here soon. Doc and I have similar yet slightly different kind of builds for this. One of the main tenets of my build is using the Living Barrier to really cut off portions of the map. It is something that can be killed by the other team. It has 2 health bars. But honestly, it's a decent amount of health. I kind of was in our testing. I was kind of running around with like 5 Cyclopses, Cyclopsi, multiple units of the Cyclops, and just attacking the wall. And it was actually taking multiple hits. It was actually pretty neat. And we'll talk about that, setting up blisterbacks, setting up locusts, any type of long range unit behind that thing. The attacking units will hit the living barrier before they even think about looking at the units behind them. It almost acts like they can't see past those unit or past the wall. So this is one that's super effective for me. Only at 2 health bars, not fantastic, but we want it to be balanced. We don't want it to be unbreakable. So
Yeah, I was actually pretty impressed. Now in multiplayer, I think maxed out you can get up to 13 barriers in a row. For Blitz here, you can do 5, which was more than enough to cover essentially any maneuver space around the map, especially if you're talking any of the entry points to the points themselves or up onto the ridges. Perfectly fine to block those off. So hopping over, we'll take a look at Engineer Swarm. We didn't really get too much of a good chance to test the exact viability of this, but a decent size AoE, and I definitely think out of the power cards that we have, this is probably one of the better ones. Living Barrier is definitely up there. This definitely provides some good survivability for your units. The nice thing is it does bring in that big swarm of engineers, and they will heal. You know, you'll see sometimes 3 or 4 engineers on one unit healing it and keeping it up. So again, I think you can use this kind of offensively, kind of defensively. Definitely very good in regular multiplayer, but definitely has its spot in Blitz as well.
yeah, the next one we were a little unsure on if we wanted another locust variant. Because as it sits right now with a colony, you can have 3 locusts out of the 12 cards in your deck. The scary thing about this is it's super good. It has a 17.4 second time to kill on the Wolverine, versus like a 23 on a standard locust and a 20 on a blood fuel locust. So maybe not the sustainability and the survivability of a blood fuel locust, but packing that damage in, it's solid. And I mean, you do get all those units after it dies too. So this is one that's, I mean, if you're making a colony deck, you're gonna have to give me a really good argument for not having this thing in it. It should be in every colony deck ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Last Stand 2 is awesome. It's nice to see them starting to put that on some lower costing card units too, because previously we'd seen them on everything that was really, really high. So pretty interesting, pretty cool. And then hopping over, Scar Hunters. This is one of those cards where I think people look at it and they're like, why would I pay 60 extra energy when I could just use, I could get 2 regular hunters, and why would I put them in there? Guys, the 60 extra energy, think of these as the veteran version. They are absolutely brutal. And I mean absolutely brutal. They have an additional health bar over the Ironclad Hunters. They have 2 additional health bars over the regular Hunters, and a 6.7 second time to kill on a Wolverine, which is just, that's almost 2 seconds faster than the Ironclad, and about 1 second, just over 1 second faster than a regular pair of Hunters. And I mean, I think the biggest thing too for these guys is they have a more consistent damage output. So they have more of a beam attack than kind of like the fuel rod shot like we've been seeing, and they are absolutely awesome. So I'm a big fan of pairing them both up, keeping the lower cost hunters and these guys in your deck. But if you have the room to put these in over regular hunters, it's tough, but it's definitely a consideration worth making.
Yeah, for those of you who are Halo Wars 1 veterans, the Scarred Hunters, or as I call them, the Scared Hunters, because that's way funnier to me. The difference in those and the Standard Hunters are it's basically the first upgrade that the Hunters got in Halo Wars 1.
Mhm.
Instead of having that slow fuel rod, blow, blow, it's a beam. And that consistent damage, we see it across pretty much every unit in this game. The consistent damage is always better.
Right.
We just really appreciate that really consistent damage. And speaking of consistent damage, we have the Skitterer mob. Now this is considered an ability right now. Not 100% sure why, because it basically just drops in 5 units. It drops in 5 of these Skitterers. And obviously the Skitterers can be attached to uh, infantry or vehicles and air and all that stuff, and they can also just kind of act as scouts. In my deck build, I have them as my scout as well. They kind of replace a ghost and a marauder and things like that. A single skitterer, not going to do a whole lot. It actually has a minute 50 on a time to kill for a Nightingale by itself. That's a long time. It's worth noting that, Nightingales and engineers are always going to have a pretty big health pool, but the point is that they're not really supposed to be by themselves. The point is when you get all 5 of them together, and if you have the time and the micromanaging ability to go ahead and attach those to other units, 5 of those things attacking one Nightingale actually switches from a minute 50 to 19.3 seconds to kill. To put that into perspective, that is 1 second slower than a level 2 Reaver against the same. So you have an anti-air vehicle, or anti-air unit, pardon me, attacking a flying unit and only killing it a second faster than 5 of these skitterers attacking that same unit. So these things really bunched up in a group, if you can throw them on your hunter captain, if you can throw them on all these different units in your army, you don't have to worry about them acting as a separate unit, and they're going to be adding that amount of firepower onto everything else that you're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like Sloth talked about, we were talking strategy. Again, we'll be bringing you a deck build here pretty soon. But we talked about how you could drop these things in at the very beginning. One, they do have rush too. So if you are seeing a lot of, kind of the infantry spam, these are a decent counter to that because you get 5 units out of it. Not very much health. They only have 2 health apiece, but still a big mob coming in is going to help you kind of fight that. And then 2, like Sloth said at the beginning, you drop these things in, you're paying about 22 energy per, and they're quick. And plus, they take down energy cores pretty fast. So you can kind of pre-position these around the map. If they die, okay, really it doesn't matter. And you've kind of already set yourself up for a good energy collection. So I like these guys. And like Sloth said, if you can attach them, that just makes them that much better. And then the piece de resistance for the Colony DLC is obviously the Hunter Captain. So I will say, looking statistically, he's about middle of the pack, to be really honest. We tested all of his capability to attack outside of his shock range. So I want to make that clear. Units we brought in, they were not getting the effects of shock, and we wanted to do that because we wanted to keep it a level playing field across the board for the attack. Now, when we did bring in the units inside the shock ability, he got even that much better, and that's where you're going to put him. Again, looking at the numbers up front, he's definitely very comparable. I think the only one he doesn't outclass as far as damage output is Atrax's Chosen, which we've always known Atrax's Chosen has been a really good attacker, especially for the range. I still say Hunter Captain's probably one of the best because of his trio of abilities. Having Shock, reducing armor, having Siphon. We put him up against Douglas, and it was a close fight up until the point where Siphon started to affect health, and then he absolutely just smoked Douglas in a one-on-one fight. Now, again, obviously not the situations you're probably going to be putting him in, but the Hunter Captain throwing an engineer on him and then having him go contest the point, he's going to do a great job to contest that point, be that tank, be able to soak up all that damage and stay alive and deal quite a bit of damage and take some stuff out too. The other thing I want to note, obviously he has the taunt ability, which can have everything focus on him. He is quite slow, but a lot of people, and even I was under the impression that they gave him more health than the other leaders. That's actually not true. The Honor Guard, the Warlord, and I believe even the Spartans have all the same health. I just think really it's the siphon ability that makes him stick around for so much longer.
Yeah, I mean, the only other person that we've seen have that siphon ability is Decimus's leader, the Warlord, and he was an infantry unit that attacked slowly and couldn't hit air units. So now we have somebody not only with siphon, but we have them with shock, and they can attack at long range and attack air units. Um, this this hero matched up with any other hero, there's no question who in my mind who's going to win that battle because you have that consistent damage and the range. So, like you said, we put him up against Douglas, and Douglas was holding his own, doing that like really slow burst damage with that rocket launcher, and then the shield went away, and you started attacking health, and the fight is not close anymore because the hunter captain's just healing off all the damage that's being done to him.
Yep, yep, absolutely awesome. So definitely everybody's got access to him that has a DLC. I really, really recommend, even being the highest energy costing hero unit we have, you got to put him in there, in my opinion. Even if I mean, even if you play one of him throughout the course of a Blitz game, he's going to be worth it at 260. We even tested him against Suicide Grunts, ironically enough, and he didn't die from a single Suicide Grunt blast, which is interesting, because you see those take out a lot of. I mean, they do a ton of damage. Blast does a ton of damage, and for him to be able to survive that, and then if there's a few other units around, siphon some of that health away, continue to deal damage. I mean, I don't think you can lose with him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, hands down the best leader in the game.
yep,
No question in my mind.
absolutely. So we'll wrap it up there. Again, we just want to do a unit breakdown. Again, that spreadsheet is in the comments down below, so feel free. You can download it, you can save it to your computer, share it with your friends. And again, it just gives a good statistical point of view for you to take a look when you're trying to build your deck, fine tune your deck. Maybe you're finding things that aren't quite working out, and you want to, try to make some unit comparisons. We've kept as much as we can the same across the board. Obviously, there's going to be some level differences and things like that thrown in there, but overall, this has really helped us. So hopefully, it continues to help you. If you guys are new to the channel, please do make sure to subscribe, hit that little bell button, follow us down on Twitter. That's down in the comments down below as well. And then additionally, join the Average Gamer Guys Club. It's been growing recently, especially since our 2 streams. Just want to say shout out to everybody that joined us for that. So thank you so very much. And it's nice because we're getting a little bit more of a community feel there, which is really cool. And there's always people looking to play Halo Wars too. So great place to go and play. I've been Doc. That's Miss Lost. Thank you guys so very much for watching. The Average Gamer Guys. We'll check you next time.